Sanbonani Dumelang, good evening and welcome to episode 167 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama. It's the Wednesday edition of the Private Property Podcast, and as we always do on Wednesdays, we have a few people. This time around, we don't have one person, but two people from the Absa team, and you'll hear a little shortly who I have with us this evening and the amazing topic that we're going to be speaking about. Of course, welcome to all our new viewers at home, whether you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Instagram. We love hearing from you, and we certainly love seeing new people who are tuning into the incredible programs that we bring on your screens. And talking about those incredible programs, of course, we don't only bring the Private Property Podcast to your screens, we also bring you the First Time Home Buyers Show that's actually going to be coming up this evening just after the Private Property Podcast. And that, of course, will be coming to your screens at 7:45 with ST Klassen. And so if you're a first-time home buyer and you're still but undecided about what the process is like and what you should be planning for and what the next steps are going to be like, then that is certainly the show for you. And another show that we love, and I love this one because I've got agricultural ambitions, is the Farming Podcast. Umbali, who's an award-winning farmer herself, brings you the Farming Podcast every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m., where we look at all things agriculture. So if you ever wanted to go into that space and you're still a bit uncertain about what you should be thinking through, some of the decisions that you'll have to make, regardless of whether you're going to be doing crop farming or perhaps looking at livestock farming, that is the show for you. And we never leave you alone over the weekend. Chad brings you the Developers Show, where we profile some of the best estates that the country has on offer. And because we love bringing you things, and this is something that I'm quite excited about, as of next week, there's a special webinar that we're going to be bringing to your screens where we're looking at building stronger homes, and it's going to be brought to you by PPC. And this is one of those things that you simply do not want to miss. This is a show where we'll be speaking to various experts who are going to be helping us through our home building journey. Some of the things that we need to be looking out for, how we go about choosing the right cement for the different kinds of projects that we're going to have in the home. And I'm sure so many of us probably do have that project that we have, especially right now during the festive season. So at 8 p.m. next week, the whole week, you have something to look forward to, where we're looking at building stronger homes with PPC cement. So do make sure that you are tuned in for that one. I had great conversations with different leaders within PPC who really made sure that we better understand some of the choices that we're going to make when it comes to choosing the right cement for the different projects that we have. So we always have something in store for you here at the Private Property, and this is one of those things that we love. We love engaging with you from the podcast to our social media platforms. And if you want to continue with the conversation, of course, do make sure that you drop us your comment, your love. We love seeing the green hearts down here below. You can also hit me up on my own social media platform at Zamantungwa_K. Now, like I said, it's a Wednesday, and on Wednesdays, we're always speaking to people in banking. I love bankers. I'm sure a lot of you have probably picked this up. Bankers are probably one of my favorite people. Also do love actually trolling them quite a bit. They're the greatest profession to troll. And this evening, what we're going to be looking at is property insurance for the upcoming holiday season. And I'm sure, when we look at the holiday season, there's so many different kinds of things that we typically do think about at home. And sometimes you probably don't think about them until they affect you. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at. And joining us this evening, I'm joined by Natasha Osman, who is the head of Homeowners Insurance Cover at the Absa Group, as well as Ayasanga Besman, who is a product manager at credit card at Absa Group. Natasha, Ayasanga, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us, Zama. Much appreciated to be here, and greetings to the viewers as well.
And I think maybe let's start
Thank you, Zama, for the fantastic.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Natasha, I'm actually going to, start with you because this is the hat that you essentially, wear. If we think about insurance, and I know I probably speak for so many of us at home, I feel as though we have so much insurance. Oftentimes, there's a statistic that says that South Africans are typically overinsured, but when you actually dig slightly deeper, as much as we may be overinsured, we're not always insured for the right things, which also probably doesn't help much. But there's always that sense that I'm always just paying insurance. I mean, even if you kind of look at your debit order list, you're probably going to find that there are multiple things that, go off where insurance is concerned. Perhaps take us through, what homeowners insurance essentially is, because for those of us who perhaps, don't know about it, whether we have a home or we don't have a home, or we're in the process of getting a home and we're told that you need homeowners insurance, what exactly is homeowners insurance?
So simply put, homeowners insurance is the insurance cover that covers your property, its fixtures and its fittings. So quite simply put, many people confuse homeowners insurance with that of contents cover. And a simple way, which we in insurance like to put it out there, is that if you take the roof of your house off and you turn it upside down, everything that falls out becomes contents cover, because it is things that you own that you may remove from your home and take around with you, and everything that doesn't becomes a fixture and fitting of your building, and that is what we cover under homeowners insurance. It's so important to have insurance, and I know people dislike insurance cover very much because they think that it's not going to help them and they pay this premium every month. But what's important for people to note is that it does cover you in those times when you have those losses that occur, where your insurance cover comes in to give you peace of mind.
And perhaps I'll bring in Ayasanga here, to probably assist us when we, and I like that Natasha's explained this so well. So then, Ayasanga, what would then be the reason why we would require home insurance when we get a bond? Because oftentimes you'll find that in the bond application process, you'll be told that you need homeowners insurance.
Thanks, Zama. I think most of all, the insurance is meant to cover both the customer and the bank against the risk of a property being destroyed. I think the example Natasha was using around 5 claims if there's a property is burned down. The idea is that property building insurance is there to make sure that you can rebuild the property to its original condition on the improvements on the stand, and as well as similar fixtures in terms of the quality that you had on the property. I guess it's about safeguarding the security that the bank has granted you against in terms of the loan.
I see we're having slightly minor tech issues. Do bear with us. The sound is fantastic. I know that there's a bit of a time delay in terms of the person speaking and them coming up on your screen. Just be aware that we are aware of it. But I like that we're able to hear both our guests quite well, because I was a bit scared there for a second that we might not be able to hear them clearly. So I'm very glad that the audio is very, it's very crisp. We can hear what they say. We're able to follow with the conversation. So I do hope that you at home are also able to follow quite well. If you are having issues, do drop us a message down here below and the team will deal with it shortly. So then, Ayasanga, I think I'm going to stay with you for a little bit. And I was saying earlier in the intro that South Africans, we're so insured. So if you have a home loan and you certainly have a bond, you probably may have homeowners insurance. But we also know that a lot of us probably have what is called home contents insurance. So explain to us then what the difference between homeowners insurance and the home contents insurance essentially is.
Fair enough. I think Natasha kind of spoke to it as well. The difference is that property insurance insures the property and the fixtures around it. So it'll be the walls, the building in itself. And then the contents insurance insures the stuff that you have in, like your TV, the appliances that you have within the house in essence. So it's about, those are the two distinctions in essence. So if you think you have, by insuring contents, you're not insuring the property. If you think you're insuring the property, you're not insuring the contents. So as a customer, you would need both at the end of the day to make sure that you've got all risks covered in essence.
I just want to check if Natasha is still with us. I know she was having a few issues. We'll see if we're able to just get her back. We do apologize for that particular issue, because I actually wanted to ask her around, and I'll throw it at you, Sanga. I mean, it is now the festive season. We are very deep into December, and I think as much as some of us are beyond fatigued because this year has felt like 10 years stacked into one, when we look at the festive season and we look at data around insurance claims, what are some of the things people typically do claim against during this festive season?
Fair enough. I think Natasha is back, but we'll see if she'll chip in. I guess the common claims that you get at this time of year would be around it is a rainy season, so you do get a lot of storms, thunderstorms, hail damage. So you get a lot of that coming through in terms of roof damages and all that coming through. So that's probably one of the key elements that does happen. You also, guess, some people may face some break-ins to the houses if they're going away and so forth. So they may be some of the considerations that we're looking at. But I think if Natasha isn't, I'll hand over to her and maybe she can just add a little bit more context as well.
Mm-hmm. Natasha, I think I'll bring you in. I was asking Ayasanga around the different kinds of claims that
I think I'm doing a good
during this festive season.
Yes, Zama. So I'm quite impressed with Sanga's response because it would be really what I would respond as well, including geysers and pipes. Throughout the year, you would get your geysers bursting or problems with your geysers, and then pipe bursts as well. With the changes in temperature, what happens is that you do also experience roof damage. Hot in the cold weather, between the storms and the hail and the tin roofs and aluminium roofs. Sorry.
We seem to be having a minor issue there with Natasha's line. I know we're going to be going to, on a break in the next 2 minutes or so. So we'll make sure that we're able to, get her in place. I'm sure it's probably just if anything, I'm going to blame the festive season gremlins. I think festive season gremlins are almost signaling that we need to slowly start wrapping up work, stop getting into Zoom sessions, especially at this time of the day. So if anything, if your boss has you speaking to a podcast late in the evening, this is the signal that we should not be doing that at this time of the year. Ayasanga, I think one of the other things that when I think about insurance claims is people probably sometimes just make mistakes when it comes to, insurance claims. And perhaps take me through some of the mistakes that sometimes customers tend to make when it comes to, insurance, especially when it comes to homeowners insurance. Because one of the really big things that we love talking about here on the Private Property Podcast is how can we learn from other people's mistakes so that we don't essentially make them ourselves?
I think, Zama, probably the biggest mistake customers make is the distinction between what is insurable and what you as a customer have to do in terms of maintaining your own property. Quite a lot of the time, that's probably the case. So if you, for instance, on a cycle basis, don't repaint your house, put damp proofing and maintain your exterior walls and so on, some damage can occur and you may think you're covered for it, but it's around wear and tear. So the most important thing is this: as a customer, it's your obligation to maintain your property on a regular basis. And I guess it also speaks to things like Natasha was speaking to around your gutters. You need to make sure they're clean. You need to make sure all of those things are coming through. You need to maintain your roof so that when it comes through the next season of thunderstorms, you at least aren't going through on a basis on a weaker footing. So those are the primary elements. But I guess the other ones is primarily if your policy is not up to date, you can't claim. And it's important, and I guess that's a benefit from a home loans point of view in our partnership with HOC, is that you get your policy collected from the home loan account and you're always up to date in terms of your policy premium. So those are probably would be the elements I'd speak to.
As I'm actually going to ask you something around policies being up to date. A lot of the viewers at home know I'm very terrible with admin. I always admit this almost at any chance that I get. And one of the things that you sometimes get, I know you have it, for example, with vehicle insurance, where they essentially will ask you, every year, make sure that you take your car in to be checked. They'll, say this is the service provider you can go to, it's free of charge. Send them essentially the paperwork saying that your car is still fine and your premium is going to, they essentially are updating, I'll say, your file, so that in the event when you do claim, they're able to check that, oh, okay, this person sent this. And if you miss that and then you make a claim, they potentially may not pay because you didn't do that particular thing that you were supposed to do. When you look at, homeowners insurance, is there that kind of admin that the consumer would typically have to do in terms of updating or verifying certain information? Because I know that it can be, certainly as a customer, I know that you're probably thinking, oh my God, it's admin. But when you don't know that you have to do that and then come, a claim, then it tends to become a bit of an issue.
Thanks, Zama. Probably the most important thing is on your premium renewal cycles. You need to make sure that your, I guess one, we've talked about maintenance, wear and tear, is just making sure you're keeping your property up to date. But I think probably the other element that is a big element is for where customers make improvements to their property, and then they don't contact the insurer to update their replacement cost value. It's very important, and I think sometimes what that will result in is your claim won't get the same payout as you would, because there's a difference in what you are insured for versus the actual damages that you're claiming for. So it's important for customers on a regular basis to reassess their property, especially where they make improvements, and pay attention to annual renewal cycle increase letters. So make sure that sum insured is relevant to your property in itself.
And I think, if anything, that's probably one of the things that could easily slip my mind, because as much as you get the emails, like I said, you get so many kinds of emails where your insurer is concerned, and there's so much kind of admin. If it isn't, taking the car in, it's having to renew your car disc, and all kinds of admin. So I think it is certainly one of those things that as a consumer you could easily slip up on. I mean, you'll do house renovations and do all kinds of work, but then don't tell your insurer that, hey, actually this has now been done, and essentially probably needs to up the the insurance amount. What are we going to do? We're going to go for a quick break, as we always do midway our conversation on the Private Property Podcast. And after this break, we want to hear from you. We're going to be taking your questions and comments, and I want to hear from you around your relationship with insurance. I think, as I was saying earlier, I feel as though we're probably overinsured, but sometimes not insured for the right thing. If you're a homeowner, do you have homeowners insurance? Do you also, on top of that, have home contents insurance? How are you finding juggling the admin of, making sure that all policies are up to date, along with, of course, the everyday stress of life as we know it? We're going to make sure that we try to get Natasha in so we can hear more from her, because this is literally her domain. This is what she does for a living. And I think if anything, people who do insurance fascinate me quite a lot. So we're going to go for a quick break, and we'll be back just after this. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama. We're actually having fun off air. If you're wondering why I'm all smiles, it's because the show never stops. So even when we take a quick break, we continue with the fun. And talking about fun, we of course always bring a whole host of different shows here on Private Property, not just the first time home buyers show that you can expect on your screens just after this podcast, but of course also this podcast, which comes to your screen screens every single weekday at 7 p.m. We've got the farming podcast that comes to your screens on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1. And over the weekend, we have Chad, who brings you the Developers Show. Something that we're also going to be bringing to your screens that I'm quite excited about, because, you know, we're always trying to find different ways to make sure that we, you know, bring you as much on the table as possible, especially when it comes to all things relating to property, and making sure that our property journeys are as smooth and effortless as possible. And that is a special series that we've done with, brought to you by PPC Cement, where we're looking at building stronger homes. It's going to be starting on Monday at 8 p.m. So next week, the whole week, you can look forward to it on at 8 p.m. And the first episode that you can already look forward to on this particular special series is around what to look out for when you buy your home. There you'll be able to catch the conversation that I had with Utepo Mutau, who's a cement and concrete lab manager at PPC. That's something that you do not want to look out, that you certainly do not want to miss out. And here we're also actually going to be going deeper into some of the structural issues that you certainly need to be looking out for when you're about to buy your first home. Some of the other great topics that we've covered or that you'll be able to watch throughout the week is building more than just a home. You're building your place of safety. That was a conversation I had with Uroim Nisi. And of course, we're looking at how our homes are more than just homes. If anything, you want to make sure that your family is safe and you're able to build a home that you can pass down to the next generation in your particular family. And we can also look forward to another great topic that we had. We're looking at saving time with home development or home renovation projects. So for those of you who perhaps are looking at those home development projects during this festive season, make sure that you do not miss that episode. And we're also going to be looking at saving time with the home development project. I think it is that season of home developments. So that is a special series on building stronger homes that you can look forward to, that we have right here across the private property social media platforms. It's going to be premiering at 8 p.m. Now, taking your questions and comments on this evening's conversation, I see here we've got one of our top fan members, Delano Scholz, saying, I'm still struggling with my banker to remove the structural and life insurance that they added on my bond. However, I stated from the beginning that I have my own insurance. And we've got here another one from staying with Delano, asking, will the insurance company pay out if your tenant damages anything on your property? Let me pose that one to Natasha. So in the event, Natasha, where it's the tenant who damages something in your property, will insurance pay out?
Absolutely, it will. So your homeowners cover, your building cover covers you for all the fixtures and fittings of the property itself. And should you have tenants on those on that property, it does extend to cover you for that. We cover you for any damages that the tenant may incur on the premises, as well as if the tenant absconds or there's a fire and the premises are burnt down. We actually give you cover for the rental loss that you incur as well against the policy that you have.
Actually, staying with cover, and we've got a question here also from Facebook coming from Colin Lee Collins, who asks, for example, in the event where your house burns down, up to how much would the insurance cover in terms of the structural damage?
So the principle of insurance is to place the customer in the same position they were in prior to the loss. So there is a sum insured that is the maximum limit that we insure you up until. But in the event of a total loss of the property, we do add certain costs on top of that sum insured to ensure that the customer will be placed back in the same position that they were in prior to that loss. So, the rebuilding of the property, if there was a tenant in that property, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, will also cover you for up to 12 months of that rental that you may lose as your income from that property as well.
We've actually got quite a lot of questions with insurance, and I think it's one of those things where you tend to not have an authority on insurance matters, and we typically get quite frustrated with insurance issues quite a lot. I did say we're overinsured. So whether it's, household insurance or homeowners insurance or car insurance, there's always something that we can talk about when it comes to insurance. We've got a great question here coming through from Shakong, also on our Facebook page. And Shakong asks, is the homeowners insurance offered to homeowners in the rural areas with the PTO, or is it only for properties with the title deed?
So it isn't necessarily, as long as the property is built according to the building standards, and you would like to insure that particular property. There is non-standard structure. When you take out insurance, we will ask you certain underwriting questions to manage the risk of that particular property. So what is the roof material? What is your roof made of? What is the wall type? Do you have thatch roofs, etc., because that impacts the premium. The location of your property as well will have an impact on the premium itself. So it is really up to the different insurers and what their appetite is, but we would certainly be able to insure risks, in rural areas as well.
So I want to bring you back in. I mean, when we look at insurance claims, what would be some of the reasons why an insurance claim wouldn't be paid out? So what would constitute a reason why a claim typically wouldn't be paid out?
I guess we talked around if your policy isn't up to date, and I guess there's probably wear and tear is the one element again to come back to. So if you're not making you're not keeping your property in the right condition, that can result in a repudiation of a claim. And it's important for customers to know that wear and tear and maintenance is actually a key element to look after. So taking care of your property is something that's very important. It's a customer's obligation to do that.
And one of the things is, I know consumers sometimes want to debate wear and tear, and make it seem like a very relative thing, because they'll say, look, this isn't necessarily wear and tear. It wasn't that bad when I had when I had the property insured. So I do urge you at home not to try and chance it, because you don't want to end up having to pay out of your own pockets for a property. Because I think if you look at the amounts that you could potentially be paying, they can be quite high. So I think you actually want to make sure that you are up to date with your policy, that you keep your house as in place as you can, so that you don't stand a chance of your claims not being paid out. Now, Natasha, we've got another question here coming through from Facebook, and this one says, last Friday I came to find the gate motor is not working anymore. I called the insurance company to come to assess the problem, and it seems the lightning was the cause of the damage. How long should I wait for this problem to be resolved? So it's essentially around the turnaround time of a particular claim being paid out.
So it really depends on insurers. So different insurers will have different turnaround times in place. However, with the gate motor that was caused by lightning is a peril of insurance under your insurance policy. It is therefore covered. Ideally, it shouldn't take that long. A service provider comes out, assesses the damage, concludes that it is lightning damage, and then can appoint a service provider to call out to repair those damages. From an Absa point of view, that shouldn't take a very long period of time, because once a claim is registered, we appoint a service provider. The service provider would call out to the property at least within 24 hours, and then the quotation is submitted to the insurance company. Provided it's a valid claim against the policy, it is then approved, and the service provider is then sent out to execute the repairs required.
Ayasanga, we're saying it's the festive season, and there are so many things that happen during the festive season. What should our viewers at home be considering if they're planning to go away during this festive season in order to protect their homes?
Thanks, Zama. I think probably the most important thing is make sure that you lock your house, make sure that you lock your keys and your doors and your windows. I think the other component that's important is consider switching off your geyser and your major electric appliances. That's to protect you against geyser burst whilst you're away and excessive damage, as well as, I guess, losing your items whilst you're away. And probably the last portion for me would be just to encourage, if you have a security provider in terms of security, so and your alarm, put that on, call your security provider and tell them that you're going to be away. That just kind of covers you so that if something does happen, they're on alert and they come quickly to sort it out, so that you don't end up having, even if someone does break in, it's a small break-in rather than a large one, and it causes excessive damage.
And before we wrap up, Natasha, what should we know, certainly as the viewers at home, if people are planning to make any home improvements, around how home improvements, affect the replacement value? And we spoke briefly about it earlier on, about making sure that you do update your insurance. But I know that one of the other things that happens during the festive season is that people do quite a lot of home improvements. So what should we be mindful of, especially when it comes to the replacement value?
So it's important that when home improvements are being done, they're done in accordance to the building standards. That's always the absolute first priority that one needs to make sure you comply with. In terms of that, any additions to your property, whether it's paving, whether you're tarring a driveway, people may not understand that these things are important, but they add to the value of your property. Building a little bit of a toilet outside, or a shed that's attached to your building, which is a building structure, those things must be advised to your insurer. Absa makes it quite easy on our absa.co.za website page, where you can go into your insurance page and look for the replacement value calculator, which allows a customer to go in and put in the details there to actually get the most up-to-date replacement value for the property itself, and ensure that you're adequately insured there.
And to wrap up, Natasha, we've got a last question here coming from Usami Mahlatse, saying, why is Absa not insuring student accommodation?
So student accommodation isn't a residential property. Under the HOC policy, we only insure properties that are used for residential purposes, because it is a personal insurance policy. With communes, student accommodation, etc., that is considered a commercial risk, and therefore needs to be insured under a commercial policy that caters for it. So under our commercial portfolio, we do potentially insure, student accommodation, communes, and bed and breakfasts, and the likes of those type of properties when income is earned for anything other than just residential use itself. But we certainly would under those portfolios.
Well, we are going to leave it there this evening. Natasha, Ayasanga, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Zama, for having us.
And I'm very glad that the festive season gremlins didn't get the better of us, and we're able to get Natasha back on our screens to continue this conversation. And that is Natasha Osman, who's the head of homeowners insurance cover at Absa Group, as well as Ayasanga Besman, who's the product manager credit card at the Absa Group. And that brings us to the end of this evening's episode of the Private Property Podcast. From myself, Zama and the rest of the team, I'm now going to be handing over to Essie Claassen, who's going to be bringing you the First Time Home Buyers Show shortly. So I do hope that you're going to be enjoying that one. Until tomorrow evening, hoping you're staying home and staying safe.